Hey YouTube, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite revolvers, and it is the Smith and Wesson 686. But before I get started, I'm going to let you know that neither one of these revolvers I have here in front of us are loaded, and when I pick them up I will show you there's nothing in them and we're clear to make this video. So what's the subject for today? The subject for today is if the Smith and Wesson 686 is outdated. So I'm going to pick this one up here and show you a little bit about it. This is a Smith and Wesson 686. This happens to be a no dash, and this one was one of the original ones when they first came out, and they were produced in 1980. So the Smith and Wesson was introduced in 1980, and what it is what they call an L frame. So an L frame is a mid-frame sized revolver that was developed to handle a heavy diet of 357 Magnums. So prior to this gun being released, your choices that you had in a Smith & Wesson revolver was the large end frame, the Model 27s or Model 28s, which is a very large frame revolver in 357 Magnum, or you had a K-frame, which was also chambered in 357 Magnum. So I have an example of a K-frame right here. I'm going to pick this one up, show you this not loaded. This one happens to be a Model 66. This is a Dash 2, and this is what the Smith & Wesson developed for law enforcement, mainly to carry for many years. This one came out in 1957, and you'll notice some of the distinct differences of the 686 and this one. There's no full underlug underneath it, and it is a much smaller frame. I know they look very similar sitting here side by side, but it's a much smaller frame. The cylinder's smaller, and one of the problems that they had with this particular gun, being chambered in 357 Magnum, was the forcing cone, how thin the forcing cone is. And I'll show you up real close. I'll try and get this to show up on camera. The forcing cone underneath there is very thin, and when you shot a heavy diet of 357 Magnums from it, you can start having problems there on this forcing cone. And a lot of the police officers that carried this gun, they used to recommend they carry plus P 38 specials in it, or when you go to the range, mainly shoot 38 specials through it and just carry them with 357 Magnums in them. So they didn't put like a heavy diet of 357 Magnums through them. Well, it became such a complaint and problem that Smith & Wesson decided to come out with what they call the L frame, and this is a larger frame 357 Magnum, and I'll show you the other side. The forcing cone is much more defined and much larger, and the frame is a lot beefier and stuff in this particular gun. So what this gun was a gun that you could carry as a duty weapon and shoot as many 357 Magnums through it as possible, and you never compromise the frame or the forcing cone or anything like that. And what they did, it was also an answer to the famous Colt Python. It bared a lot of resemblance to it. It had the adjustable target sights on it. It had the full underlug on it. It has a target hammer on it, stuff like that, you know. Very similar to the Colt Python, but different in many ways also. And I have videos discussing these two, and it became like a, like a direct competition with the Colt Python. This is Smith & Wesson's answer to it. Now they make this also in a blued version, and it's called the Model 586, and I've showed a couple of those also that I have here, but we're just going to talk about this one. This is the main one, the 686. They still make this gun today. Started making it in 1980, and they make it all the way through the present. And they have so many different variations of this thing, it's hard to keep up with. They have 7-shot versions of it. They have every different type of barrel length, from 2.5 inch all the way up to 8 inch that you can get. This just happens to be my favorite barrel size, is the 4-inch one, and that's just a personal preference thing. This one's outfitted with a set of factory Smith & Wesson combat grips on them that you could get in the 1980s. They usually came from the factory with target grips very similar to these right here that's on this Model 66. Now, Why do I think this is outdated? Well, the reason I think this is outdated, folks, is this gun was developed for law enforcement so they could carry a duty weapon and not have to worry about shooting lighter loads in it. So it was a durability thing. But the problem is Smith and Wesson developed this in 1980 and didn't release it out to the public and the police departments until 1981. Well, around that time, law enforcement had started their gradual changeover from revolvers to semi-automatic weapons to, semi-automatic 9mm. And in my opinion, this gun is probably one of the best guns that Smith & Wesson ever produced, but it was a day late and a dollar short. These things never really got the recognition to be carried by law enforcement like the larger frame Colt Pythons did. The Colt Python was released in 1955. It was almost the exact same size as this gun, and this K-frame here was released in 1957. The end frames were a little bit too large for law enforcement to really carry around, so they wanted to make a smaller one, and they went down to this K-frame. Well, the K-frame had durability issues, and law enforcement continued to use these all the way up until 1980 when this 686 came out. But by the time it came out, the transition was already starting over to semi-automatic. So I believe this gun, if it would have came out in the 1950s or so, this may have gone down as one of the most iconic revolvers that there ever was in law enforcement. It would have gotten a lot more recognition than it did. Now, a few things about this gun is your typical Smith & Wesson. You push on the cylinder release to release the cylinder. It's double action. It counterclockwise. It rotates when you pull the hammer back, and it has a very smooth action on it. This particular one has had an action job on it, so it is probably one of the best. And I'm going to pull this trigger here real slow. It's probably one of the best double action triggers in my particular collection. Now, do I think it's outdated? I don't think, because it's a revolver, I do not think any revolver is outdated, folks. I think a revolver is one of the finest handguns you'll ever shoot. If you take a revolver to the range, you're not going to find a finer trigger than shooting a revolver in single action. And if you get a really good one, double action can be a lot of fun to shoot. Just pull this back and see how much of a marksman you can be. But do I think that Smith & Wesson was a little late to the game and coming out with this L frame? I absolutely do. I think that that's one of the mistakes they made, in my opinion, is holding off on making such a great firearm that could compete with the larger Colt Python. When I say larger Colt Python, it's not larger than this. It's larger than the K-frame right here, that Smith & Wesson had offered since the 1950s up until the 1980s. They still make the K-frame also, and let me tell you something, folks, this is a fine firearm also. It just it's not going to have the durability if you shoot a steady load of diets of 357 hot ammo as this larger L-frame will in the in 357 Magnum. But both of them are fantastic firearms. I do not think revolvers are outdated. I just think that Smith & Wesson was a little late to the game and releasing such a fine firearm. But this gun is wildly popular with shooters amongst the world. If it wasn't popular, they still wouldn't make it. And they have the Smith & Wesson Plus model now with the 7-shot cylinder. I believe they even have an 8-shot cylinder, but you can correct me on that. I'm not really certain. Variety of different kind of grips. This thing's very modifiable. You can do a lot of stuff to it. A lot of competition shooters shoot this gun with 38 special in it because it's a really soft shooting round, and these actions are very easy to work on. You can virtually get parts for them anywhere. You can find any gunsmith to work on them. It's a little bit different than the Colts, where you have to really go out and find somebody to work on them. So it's a great firearm that I would never get rid of in a million years. I just think they were a little late to the game, and it could have became a lot more popular than it really is. And in today's time, if they had offered this size frame in like the 1950s when they came out with the K-frame. But anyway, folks, let me know what you think about the Smith & Wesson 686. It's one of my favorite revolvers. I want to know if it's one of yours, and how do you think it stacks up to this K-frame Model 66. Thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.